Hello everyone, I'm Megan Sullivan and welcome to my honest review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's first demo. Yes, there are 2 demos coming out and this is number 1. And honestly, I have some mixed feelings about what I've played so far, and I'd like to talk about that. So, if you appreciate honesty and like this video, please give it a thumbs up and this channel a follow, and I'll be sure to follow up with part 2 once the second demo drops. Now, just to lay out my credentials, I've been a fan of Final Fantasy VII since 1997, when I played it for the first time as a teenager on the original PlayStation, and I loved the experience, even though I had no idea what the hell was going on in the story, and decades later, I still kinda don't understand what the hell is going on in the story. But that's okay, because the original was such a pivotal moment in gaming. The graphics, the music, even the convoluted, silly story, the combat, the world, the mini-games, all of it was fantastic and revolutionary. And even when it was cool to downplay Final Fantasy VII's importance in the history of video games, and yes, that was a thing as recently as like 10 years ago, I maintained this game was special for a reason, and I will always be fiercely protective of my memories of the original Final Fantasy VII. But I have to admit, I am not an apologist for this game. I recognize that the original had flaws, and I'm not afraid to point those flaws out. And when I played the remake a few years ago, I also really loved it, but I wasn't afraid to recognize it had some flaws. Some of those flaws being things like pop-up textures, stilted dialogue, uneven voice acting, and a few other issues. But Final Fantasy VII Remake was still really good, and I want to really stress that. So, how do I feel about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's very first demo? Well, let's go over that. So let's go over the positives first. Something that I really enjoy about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the combat is snappier than ever. There's been some really nice quality of life changes that I want to point out. For one thing, skills and abilities feel more accessible than ever. All you have to do is fill up a gauge and then immediately press a button to access your spell list or one of your nifty abilities in battle. And it's very easy to toggle between characters in order to give them orders about which spell or ability to use. What I really dig though is a new synergy attack feature that lets 2 team members tag team an enemy and really wallop them with all sorts of crazy combos, and then even team up for a special attack that takes a huge chunk out of the enemy's health. Not only does this feel satisfying to pull off, but I love all the particle effects and ridiculous animation that comes with these special synergy attacks. So, big thumbs up right there. Oh, I just want to say I also really love how these synergy attacks really make it feel like 2 team members have really bonded both off the battlefield and on the battlefield. I really like that. That's a nice touch. I will say the jury is still out on the AI controlled portion of the combat. I don't know if it's a me problem or a game problem, but it's not terrible, I'm just not totally sure, so I can't really comment on that. Also, this isn't a complaint, but I do want to warn people that combat in normal mode can get pretty tough, so if you're like me, you might be using more mega potions than you'd like, so make sure to brush up and get that practice in before you get to those boss fights. So what else do I like about this demo? Well, I really love how the world more than ever feels super fleshed out. Nibelheim feels like a real destination, and you get a sense of what a total backwater it is when playing this demo. I loved climbing up its rock faces and going over its bridges. Oh, speaking of Cloud's hometown, I actually like the little hints the development team drops that something during the demo is not quite right. Now, I want to try to dance around spoilers, I don't want to give anything away, but honestly, I think most people know how the story goes. But let's just say that if you played the Crisis Core remaster, you'll like all the little nods to what's actually happening here. And finally, I really like the rearrangement of the music. It's very modern, but very beautiful. It's very nice. I just wish it wasn't so loud. There's some sort of weird audio issue where it felt like the music was too loud, or maybe the voices were too quiet. I didn't pick up on quiet voices, but it definitely felt that the music was loud. And yes, you can turn that down in the settings. It's just a little weird that that's kind of the default. Now let's get to the stuff I was not so keen on. Number 1 is the inconsistency in the graphics. When you see the latest trailer for the game, and watch out for spoilers by the way, the graphics look phenomenal and it's hard not to get hyped. But unless this is an old demo build, I'm a bit worried about the graphical fidelity for this game. As others have pointed out on the internet, the background textures in Rebirth look really rough in places, even in graphics mode, but especially in performance mode. I also feel like the character models need some serious polish in places. Cloud's face, for example, looks kind of, cartoonish, goofy, something about it seems a little off. On top of that, I experienced some frame rate stutter in graphics mode, so just be on the lookout for that, and there was some janky looking movement. But I have a much bigger bone to pick with a traversal system. I do not understand why I have to press circle to climb rocks or descend down terrain. Why do I suddenly need to do that? I mean, that's something Cloud should just do, right? It's especially aggravating considering how linear the level design is in this demo. Now, the good news is the second demo is supposed to really open up now that we're outside of Midgard, but for now, we're sort of dealing with a very linear environment, and I don't understand why I have to suddenly press all these extra buttons to do basic things. Also, parts of the traversal system feel kind of dated. Look, crab walking along ledges or squeezing between rocks felt really cool in the original Uncharted games and the old God of War games, but here, there's no fail state, and so as pretty as it looks, it feels ultimately pointless. Even more pointless, though, is the weird padding that's all over this demo. It feels like Cloud spent way too much time slowly walking from one point to another, or slowly turning a valve, or slowly crawling on his belly. And I don't understand why he spent a bunch of time cleaning up toxic gas? What is this pointless busy work? I don't understand why the demo wasted our time with this. It just doesn't make any sense. Also, I quickly want to throw in that I don't know what's going on with the UI. It's not that it's difficult to navigate, but it feels almost like an afterthought. It feels kind of plain or bare bones, or something seems underwhelming about it. But ultimately, my biggest issue is with the stilted dialogue and really uneven, quite frankly at times terrible voice acting. I know we're dealing with different teams here, but how? How is it possible that you can have phenomenal dialogue and acting in games like Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy XVI, etc., but you can't deliver a basic decent script with basic decent voice acting for Final Fantasy VII? I don't even blame the voice actors for this. I don't even blame the localization team for this. It feels like they were hemmed in by all sorts of strict parameters. It's just really frustrating how flat the voice delivery is and how everyone talks in weird, incomplete sentences. It's like the script writers and voiceover director all went out to lunch and then never came back. What is going on here? It is actively ruining my enjoyment of one of my favorite Final Fantasies of all time. Now keep in mind, this is all very subjective. This is just my opinion, so if you really enjoy the voice acting in this game, that's a good thing. So the bad news is out of the way. Now I can revisit the good news in the form of a second demo, which is coming our way soon, and it's supposed to really open up the world of Final Fantasy VII and highlight more of the quality of life improvements we can expect from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So with that said, what did you guys think of this first demo for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you later.